Translator. Reverie. Editor. Henyi. Ling Han's voice thundered forth in a mighty roar. The shout burst out like spring thunder, splitting the heavens, and in that instant, it shattered and dispersed the oppressive aura Jia Ming had cast over the surroundings. You cultivate physical arts, do you not? Jia Ming spoke to Ling Han. Without even waiting for Ling Han's answer, he continued speaking on his own. I also walk the path of physical cultivation. In fact, every disciple within the Earth Dragon sect tempers their flesh and blood through physical arts. This is precisely what sets our sect apart from the rest. He paused for a moment before continuing. I say this so that you understand clearly. If your confidence comes from relying upon physical arts, then that confidence is nothing more than a foolish delusion. The physical art I cultivate is called the Earth Dragon Chant. Once mastered, one gains the power of an Earth Dragon, able to crush everything beneath heaven. Ling Han could not help but laugh, and he replied, Since the birth of the world, countless divine beasts have emerged. Yet among them the strongest are the true dragon and the true phoenix. So tell me, what rank does an Earth Dragon hold? He cultivated the 9 dragons tyrant art, yet even he had never boasted of possessing the power of 9 true dragons. You only claim the strength of a single Earth Dragon. What sort of achievement is that supposed to be? Moreover, it was only because no one had truly mastered that technique. Otherwise, he could have blown Jia Ming away to the ends of the earth with nothing more than a single breath. Jia Ming snorted coldly and said, Everyone believes the true dragon reigns supreme, yet they do not know that the Earth Dragon is not inferior to the true dragon in the slightest. Ling Han waved his hand dismissively and said, So now you intend to argue with me about the ranking of divine beasts? Jia Ming broke into a grin, revealing 2 rows of thick white teeth. His upper canine teeth protruded like the fangs of a ferocious beast, giving him a rather frightening appearance. He said, Of course not. I only want you to understand just how powerful the Earth Dragon truly is. I possess the bloodline of that mighty Earth Dragon, and every 2 days my ancestral blood awakens a little more, growing stronger and stronger. Hu Nu suddenly clapped her small hands together and cried out as if she had just realized something important. Aren't Earth Dragons just earthworms? Ling Han burst into loud laughter and said, That's right. Right now we're listening to a tiny earthworm boasting all the way up to the heavens. Everyone present smiled faintly, while Hu Nu laughed loudly without restraint. She always gave Ling Han the greatest support. Jia Ming slowly raised his right hand. The veins along his arm pulsed violently, and his blood surged through his body with a gurgling rumble. Hong. His head full of black hair suddenly whipped backward, and crimson chi erupted from within his body as though some terrifying creature was awakening inside him. Ling Han was slightly startled. This man's blood surged like rolling thunder, revealing astonishing attainments in the cultivation of physical arts. In terms of the level of techniques, the 9 Dragons Tyrant art unquestionably surpassed the Earth Dragon Chant. Yet before both techniques were cultivated to their ultimate limits, it was difficult to say which of the 2 held the advantage. It was like comparing 2 extremes, one reaching 100, the other reaching 1,000. Before reaching that point of 100, the Earth Dragon Chant would not necessarily be inferior to the 9 Dragons Tyrant art. The difference was that the 9 Dragons Tyrant art allowed Ling Han to reach that point of 100 much more swiftly. Both of them stood within the spiritual infant tier, and were clearly still far from their technique's ultimate limits. Thus, Ling Han absolutely could not afford to underestimate his opponent. Ling Han stepped out from the crowd. He twisted his neck and stretched his limbs, loosening his joints. Pa! 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 The bones throughout his body cracked loudly as his blood circulation accelerated, rumbling like thunder surging through a riverbed. Physical arts differed from origin power. Before unleashing brute strength, one had to go through a process of warming up so the body's full power could be released completely. Let us battle in the skies, Ling Han said calmly. Unexpectedly, Jia Ming refused. What? You still care about the lives of these mere ants? Shu He sprang forward, his body instantly accelerating to an extreme as he threw a punch straight at Ling Han. Explosive power was a natural component of brute force. The speed of this sudden leap was no weaker than Ling Han's thunderclap ninth heaven. Of course, because it was a burst of explosive force, it could only last for a fleeting moment. Such terrifying speed could not possibly be maintained constantly. Otherwise, Jiaming's bones, blood, and flesh would collapse under the strain, unable to endure the burden. However, such limitations did not apply to Ling Han. He also cultivated the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, and his physique was comparable to metal refined one tier higher. His body could withstand countless such bursts of explosive power. Ling Han snorted coldly and clenched his fist tightly, throwing it straight toward Jiaming. Peng! The two fists collided violently, and ripples instantly formed in the air, spreading outward in all directions. Peng! 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 The ground itself seemed to be ripped apart as the terrifying force spiraled outward and swept through the surroundings. Peng! 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 Jushuan and the others were all blasted backward and sent flying. Fortunately, Hu Niu and Wenren Qian moved quickly to protect them, so although everyone appeared rather disheveled, none of them were actually injured. Wenren Qian could not help but glance repeatedly at Hu Niu. Although she had already known that Hu Niu was somewhat freakish, witnessing it personally was still deeply shocking. A little girl who appeared to be only 7 or 8 years old was actually an elite of the spiritual infant tier, and even possessed the ability to battle opponents beyond her level. Truly unfathomable. Within the swirling smoke and dust, Ling Han and Jia Ming fought fiercely, exchanging punch after punch. They battled in close quarters, every move and every strike deadly and decisive. There was not the slightest buffer between them. If either one fell short in strength for even a moment, they would immediately be struck. At best, bones would shatter. At worst, death would come instantly. Everyone watched anxiously, but the battlefield was wrapped in dust and smoke, preventing them from seeing clearly. They were forced to retreat farther and farther away because the aftershocks of the battle were simply too terrifying, enough to threaten their lives. Only Hu Niu remained completely confident in Ling Han. She even began eating happily, carefree and unconcerned. The fierce battle raged on for several minutes. Suddenly, all movement ceased. Then a figure soared into the sky and stood there proudly. Ha ha! Exhilarating! Truly exhilarating! It was Jia Ming. His black hair fluttered wildly behind him, fully revealing his fierce and unruly aura. You are the first person who has allowed me to fight so satisfyingly. Therefore today I will spare your life. However, you must improve faster. My ancestral bloodline awakens a little more each day. The speed of my growth is beyond your imagination. Otherwise, next time, you will not even be worthy of receiving 3 punches from me. His figure suddenly descended again. Shoo, he plunged straight into a deep pit and instantly disappeared into the pitch-black darkness below. Amid the lingering smoke and dust, Ling Han also walked out with large strides. The surging qi and blood throughout his body gradually calmed, like a roaming true dragon returning to its lair, no longer displaying any extraordinary movements. His expression was solemn, yet within his eyes burned an intense and unyielding fighting spirit. Translator, Reverie, Henyi. Next time? Ling Han revealed a faint smile. Jia Ming had retreated of his own accord, clearly lacking the certainty of victory. Otherwise, would he have released Wenren Qian and Jushuan so easily? However, the clash between the two just now had been a contest of pure brute strength alone. Should origin power, secret arts, and cultivated skills be fully brought into play, the entire situation would shift once more. Ling Han's smile carried the calm confidence of a martial master. Whether the contest was of origin power or of physical strength, within the same cultivation tier he stood invincible. If he were to unleash the full extent of his battle prowess, who in this realm would he need to fear when he already commanded 3 mystical powers within his grasp? Brother Ling is truly a heaven-blessed talent, able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the finest disciples of the 5 great sects. Qian offers her respects. Wenren Qian said with a gentle smile, her beautiful eyes glimmering like starlight. She bore no particular romantic thoughts toward Ling Han, and merely wished to befriend such a rare prodigy. Otherwise, since Jia Ming had pursued her with such fervor, she would only need to behave with the slightest intimacy to easily gain his assistance. Ling Han laughed heartily and said, "Let us go." We should enter as well. Ah, Pa, you heartless fellows, leaving Uncle Rabbit behind again. A white figure flashed across the air. The rabbit bounded over from the distance, a carrot clenched in its mouth. Yet for some unknown reason, it could still speak with perfect fluency. As for the rabbit's ability to speak, it was no longer any secret within Restore Heaven Academy. Several great figures of the Academy had explicitly declared that no one was allowed to harbor any designs toward the rabbit, causing the creature to appear exceedingly mysterious. Thus, although it committed countless wicked acts, stealing large amounts of spirit medicine, it always escaped punishment, and no one dared demand compensation from it. The 5 great sects clearly recognized the rabbit's identity as well. It was one of those special beings that would be spared suffering during the settling. If it merely stole a little spirit medicine, what of it? With a smile, Ling Han said, "You seemed perfectly at home in the academy, like a fish swimming through water. That is why we did not call for you." "Pa! Those brats all ran away, and the water is gone. How can Uncle Rabbit still swim like a fish in water?" The rabbit was greatly displeased. "All right, the historic site lies below. Perhaps spirit medicine may be found there. You arrived just in time to lend us that dog nose of yours for sniffing," Ling Han said. "Pa! You're the dog nose! Your whole family is dog nose! Ah!" The rabbit suddenly lost its bearings as Hu Nu bit down fiercely on its buttocks. The pain made it leap into the air before it plunged straight into the deep pit below. "You're killing your Uncle Rabbit!" Its screams echoed from the depths of the pit, each word growing more distant than the last, the speaker clearly falling at astonishing speed. Ling Han grasped Zhu Xuaner's hand and leapt toward the enormous pit. Shoo! 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 The others also followed, leaping down one after another, Wenren Qian. Qian quietly let out a breath of relief. Though she seemed to have gathered quite a few companions, when the critical moment arrived, it still depended on each person's heart. None had stood beside her to face the enemy together, and she had no interest in calling them back. Taking a stride forward, she also fell swiftly into the immense pit. Ling Han held Zhu Xuan in his arms, while the extraordinary beauty clung to him tightly like an octopus. Her delicate face carried a dreamy expression as she basked in the presence of his masculine aura. That expression was truly enchanting. Ling Han almost lost his restraint and wanted to bring Zhu Xuan into the Black Tower, pressing this alluring beauty beneath him. He forcibly suppressed the thought. After descending rapidly for a long stretch of distance, it felt as though he had plunged into a layer of thick slush, slowing instantly before accelerating once more. At the same time, a field of brightness appeared before his eyes. They had actually entered an entirely new world. Beneath them spread a vast grassland covered with lush green grass, towering firmament trees, and distant mountain ridges rising and falling across the horizon. Pooh, pooh, pooh. The others arrived one after another behind them. At the front, Hu Nu was still biting the rabbit's tail, while the rabbit screamed endlessly. "This historic site is actually a special space," everyone exclaimed. If it were not so, the space here might indeed have been vast, but the environment could never have appeared like this. Looking upward from here, drifting clouds and a sun suspended high above could be seen. Yet upon sensing it carefully, one would realize that it was not a true sun, but rather an eternal, blazing giant fireball. Only because it lay at such a distant height did it appear like the sun. "A magnificent handiwork," Ling Han exclaimed. It was not as though he had never entered special spaces before. For instance, the Devil's Sky Mystery Realm and the other 12 Heaven Mystery Realms were all worlds forcibly excavated by mighty experts and refined into small worlds. However, to still behold something resembling a sun within a small world. This was the first time he had witnessed such a marvel. No wonder the Purple Moon Empire and the 5 great sects temporarily halted their battles and chose to enter here first, Zhu Xuan said with a nod. She remained reluctant to leave Ling Han's embrace, her eyes so alluring that Ling Han felt an insatiable urge to devour her. "So then, which direction should we go?" Li Zixian asked. Ling Han pointed toward the artificial sun and said, "Let us follow the sun." "Yes." Everyone nodded in agreement. Since there was no clear direction, it would be better to follow a visible landmark. In any case, this was not a real sun, and its size could not possibly be outrageously large. The rabbit and Who Knew soon caught up with the group. The rabbit continuously rubbed its buttocks. It had not been bitten for a long time, and had gradually forgotten its place, but now it had received a proper reminder. This place is enormous. They flew close to the ground, already moving at astonishing speed, yet after a long while the scenery remained endless green grass, with an occasional mountain peak appearing from time to time. Hong, ahead of them. The sudden sounds of battle echoed through the air before quickly fading away. This was a path they were destined to pass through. Ling Han and the others did not alter their direction. Merely judging from the sounds alone, it was impossible to determine the battle prowess of the two sides. To detour because of this would be excessive caution. They soon arrived at the location where the battle had occurred. The ground was riddled with deep pits, revealing that although the battle earlier had not lasted long, it had been extremely intense. Ling Han casually threw out a punch, and a pit instantly appeared upon the ground. Everyone was astonished, because the pit created by Ling Han's strike was far smaller than the other pits scattered across the battlefield. Although Ling Han had merely unleashed a casual blow, it still demonstrated that both parties involved in the earlier battle must have been terrifyingly powerful beings. The one ahead of us should be Jiaming, Ling Han inferred. This man is extremely arrogant, yet he chose not to continue fighting. Clearly, his opponent was very formidable, most likely stronger than him. The enemy Jiaming encountered here should now be chasing after him, Wenren Qian said, following his reasoning. If Jiaming escapes, then it will be our turn to face this terrifying foe. Li Fengyu shivered, an existence that even Jiaming had been forced to flee from. He himself was obviously far less qualified to resist. Shut! Don't jinx it! The rabbit scolded him. At that moment, an enormous, elongated insect suddenly wriggled toward them at great speed. This creature stretched nearly 100 meters in length. It somewhat resembled a centipede, its entire body composed of segmented sections, each segment bearing a pair of legs, one black and one white. Thus, when viewed from its left or right side, the sight appeared completely different. With such a long body, its height was naturally considerable. Its body and legs stood roughly 15 meters tall, though this was still far from comparable to its immense length. This elongated insect possessed no eyes, no nose, and no ears. Its entire head was nothing but a massive round mouth. When it opened, its head split apart, revealing ring upon ring of razor-sharp teeth.